Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ask Me Anything. I hope we get some people in the group, but I want to make sure I don't mess up my schedule that I've put on the Twitch place. So hopefully, those of you who are joining me on Twitch or those of you who are joining me on YouTube Live, it should be fun to go through anything that you have to ask. I don't see anything in chat right now, so I'm assuming that there's no chats there. I've looked at the poll gab, and there's no poll gab either. So we'll see how this goes. Basically, the fun that happened last week was that I went to the MVP Summit on campus on Microsoft, and it was really a blast. There's a lot of things that are coming and a lot of fun that is going to be had with current stuff that's out there in preview. But the biggest piece is just to understand that nothing's going away as far as doing anything with SQL Server. There's a lot of things coming for tools, a lot of things coming for the modules and open sourcing of stuff. So I really thoroughly had a great time for the week, and I thank all the product group and everybody there. Hopefully I will get some social media things going here in the next little while to make sure that people know that I'll be live and things like that. But I wanted to be able to practice and get my OBS scenes set up and everything that makes life good for streaming. So today I'm actually streaming to YouTube Live as well and seeing how that goes. If it goes well, then I will probably dual stream just to make sure it lands at the same time to YouTube as it does to Twitch. That way, those who can stream YouTube but can't do Twitch maybe can watch the live stream as well. They'll all be recorded at the same time, so there's no big deal there. But hopefully we'll get this message out that there's an Ask Me Anything on Tuesday, 4 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm working on getting that to be a little bit earlier, just because, frankly, the different time zones of the world. I have one at 4 p.m. as well, Mountain Time on Monday. Those are the DBA Tools streams, so that will be all about what DBA Tools has to offer, and we're just going to be going through commandlets each day and going behind the scenes to see what they do. Make sure we understand what happens in that module. That module is not going to get smaller. It's got 682 commands right now in Windows PowerShell, and even still with PowerShell 7 it still has plenty, 600 and still over 600 commands in PowerShell 7 that you can use. So taking advantage of the new engine. Really great things happening. Microsoft released the SQL Server module 22.0.59, which is the newest version of the PowerShell module. That will give us the PowerShell SMO version of 17, which is great. That backfills some of the objects that should have been in 16 but didn't feature build for 2022. 17 is not the version of 2022. It's actually 16. But 17 means they're ahead of the game and playing games with new stuff in the SMO. So super fun releases for the PowerShell junkies that we are, and for the other things that we do with tools. So Azure Data Studio had an update and some really cool things. Lots of things coming, so it's really good that they are developing things that are going to continue to make our life better, getting things in sync, doing better things, projects and new extensions and all that stuff that people are making for Azure Data Studio and Visual Studio Code. But Azure Data Studio is where I live because SSMS is automatically installing Azure Data Studio with that. So it's kind of fun to have that there. At first, I was kind of skeptical about adding a new product with Management Studio. Number one, install. Number two, payload. But to have on all my machines, I have Management Studio on, to know I have Azure Data Studio to plop in, use the tools of Management Studio to open up Azure Data Studio with the new query, or to open up PowerShell is really a handy feature to marry the two. So having Azure Data Studio default on the machine if a Management Studio is installed, at least 18 and 19. The previous versions didn't have it, but 18 and 19 have that installed by default. So I can pop into Azure Data Studio as long as I configure it and add things into it that make life better, like PowerShell notebooks and things like that where you have to do an extra install. But once it's configured, it's good, and I can use it everywhere. So it's really kind of handy to have that there. So hopefully you take advantage of that. I don't see any questions yet still. But again, like I said, I wanted to make sure that I was available for the time that I specified on Twitch. I will be putting that out in the stronger places to make sure that people are aware. If you didn't catch the AMA live, that's fine. I want to make sure that you all have access to logging on and getting access to me. But the other thing to note is that if you watch this afterwards and see what there is available, I am targeting June 21st or 20th to do my PowerShell 3-day course. We'll just do it 3 consecutive days for the beginning and see how that goes. The biggest piece is that it's going to be out there and allowed. Everybody who signs up for the class will get the recordings for free, and we'll just start there. This is my first foray into recorded classes and delivered live classes, so it'll be kind of fun. Oh, maybe there is a question out there on PollGab. Let's take a look at that real quick. Thank you, Morse314. Let's see what we have out here. Okay. Can you provide some fundamentals on those of us interviewing for a senior level DBA position? Yeah, great question. Normally in a senior DBA position, when I was hiring as a director, the most important thing I wanted to understand is that the person knew what they knew and didn't know what they don't know. So the biggest piece is not whether you're Mr. Expert on the knowledge, in my opinion. I think that from a hiring manager perspective, I enjoyed talking with people about things that I thought they should know and finding out whether they knew of them or not. The most important thing, and if you haven't done interviewing things, you can go look up Tessa White. She's the job doctor out on LinkedIn. She's got a great book and other things on interviewing. But the most important thing for me was to hear somebody say, I don't know. I don't know, but I'll find out. So to me, that was big. To have somebody bull crap my way into, like, I want to know how to do this, and they just BS their way through it. I didn't find that to be a great thing. So number one, you want to hone in on the things that you do know. It isn't about whether you know a lot or not. You want to have experience, so you'll want to bring your experiences with you. One, where you performance tuned. One, where you troubleshot something that went wrong. Two, when you had to jump in at night. Those things really are important to show dedication to your career. The biggest piece that I get in that part is that when I hear of the things and they talk confidently about what they've done and how they've handled it, it may not be right. It may not be the way I think it should have been done. But the fact that they hung in there and they brought experiences is important. Number two, you're going to hear things. They're going to ask you questions that you don't know. And it's okay to say, I really haven't done that in my job. I think one of the key pieces of an interview is that they, number one, know that you're passionate about what you do. Everybody can go get a job. They can hire on and get a job and work their hours and get paid. But at the end of the day, I wanted someone who was vested in SQL Server or vested in the job that they're interviewing for. And in the senior DBA, they aren't expected. I didn't expect my senior DBAs that I hired and one that works for me now. I don't expect them to know everything. But I do expect that they would be passionate about diving into a problem and not being afraid to read, watch a video, learn, and then apply, right? So to me, number one, knowledge is important. Bring it with you. Bring your experiences with you. Bring your passion with you. It isn't a job. You're in a career at a senior DBA level. You're in a career, and you want to have them know that you're on their side. You're with them. Come thick or thin, right? Come heck or high water. You want to help them understand you're with it. You're going to be willing to learn. I don't know that answer, but I'm happy to go and learn, and I'm going to take that note, and I'm going to go learn that after this interview. That shows dedication to your job. So to me, those are the things that I look for. So great question. Excellent question. Hopefully there's other questions that come in, but that was a great. Thanks, Morse 314. That's a fantastic question for the audience that they will get to watch or listen to after we get done. The other things about jobs, I mean, since no one's asking questions other than this one, the biggest thing for me in jobs is to love what you do. I have always had the mantra of, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And to me, that drove me to do a lot of things. I read a lot of books. SQL Server Internals books are great. Kaylin Delaney did a great job moderating those. There's lots of great authors that contributed to those. I never got into that book. There's also MVP books that are SQL Deep Dive 1 and 2. I got into the 2, I think, book, writing on FileStream. There is a lot of smart people. And sometimes when you're diving into things like that and learning the ropes, a lot of the senior DBA stuff is going to be varying between company to company. So job stuff is hard to just have a blanket answer like, yeah, this is how you nail the interview. Nailing the interview, you better want to work for that company because it can get to be daunting when you start thinking about the principle of I work for a company and you're not really vested in the company, you just want a job. Sometimes that helps to get you some experience. Sometimes people jump jobs to get more money. And that's a valid thing to do. Just be careful how far you go before you get some golden handcuffs, that you get paid so much money you can't go anywhere else without taking a pay cut. If you're taking that extra money and you're putting it into retirement or somewhere where you're not living off of it, you don't expand into your income, then jumping jobs to get more money is not an evil thing to do. As long as you work for your money, I think companies are willing to do a lot of things. And that's just me. If I'm working hard for the employer, I have bets that even if they let me go or lay me off because of economy, I can get another job because I have vested myself heavy into the skills and learning things, learning the nuances of troubleshooting and all that stuff, and then sharing my knowledge. I speak at SQL Saturdays and other places and now online with the Twitch and YouTube. But the big thing is that you get experience sharing, you get experience helping others, and that really just solidifies it in your head. When I build a presentation for an event, I learn more about what I'm doing because I have to tell people about it. I have to help people understand it. So jobs are great. Jobs are great. I think employment is better with passion, right? You're treating your job like a career move. Making sure that you're passionate and you do the work that they want you to do and need you to do, and you don't complain. You just work hard. It's kind of nice. But jobs are great. There's a lot of them out there. If you ever looked at LinkedIn jobs, there are a ton of DBA positions that are remote. You can work from home. And maybe you don't like that. I have a mixed thing. I love working from home, but there are things where some people really need people. And so you work in an office. You make sure that you get a good deal in your jobs. I make sure I have a good deal everywhere I go, mostly because it's important to understand your limits or your desires in making your life so that you aren't working, you're doing a career thing and you're loving what you do, fixing problems, helping people, moving data around, migrations, all those things that you get out of your job is going to fulfill your life. If it's not fulfilling and you bring bad mojo to home, you know you've gone past the point of liking that place of work and you may need a change. And so my job is to make sure that I hone my skills enough that when I want another job or I want to get involved with another company, that I'm right raring to go. I'm not stagnant. I'm not feeling like I'm aged in my skills are atrophied. That's a bad thing too. So lots of fun, good stuff when it comes to how do I find a good job? How do I find a good company? Those people, one other thing that about jobs is if the person hasn't come to the interview with any semblance of knowledge of the company you're interviewing for, it is a detriment. I'm not saying it will not get you the job, but it really perks up. It really perked up me when I was hiring and as a director. When I hired somebody or when I went to hire somebody and they told me what they found out about the company and asked me pointed questions about the company and the platform they use and what I support and all of that stuff, that really means a lot to, they're already starting to vest themselves before the hiring flag has even been drawn. So that to me is a really big deal for people to perk up the managing or the hiring managers to get going. So lots of good fun stuff for jobs, getting jobs. My question out to everybody else that may be watching this after is, how many of you have engaged a coach or a mentor or somebody who like this person asked a question like, how do I do this? How do I do it better? How do I interview as a senior DBA? And get ideas before you go to the interview. I've had several reach out to me. I actually do some job help in my local community, and the people that reach out and ask those questions, we have some pretty good dialogues. And with the Job Doctor on LinkedIn, you get some really good benefit from her perspective of being an HR director, manager, head of HR, where she actually looks for people and recruits and all these things. It's really interesting, but Tessa does a great job in distilling the job thing and how you find the company you want and how you interview for the company you want and how to cut through some of the BS that's out there that keeps you from applying for that job or that you just don't want to interview for, but you're doing it for other reasons. So plenty of opportunities out there, full-time and remote and full benefits and everything like that you can tackle as a DBA. So super fun ideas there. Hopefully that was helpful. Jobs are something I can talk about all the time. I spent 12 years or more, actually way more than 12 years as a director and hiring manager. And there are a lot of things that I don't like. I've cut interviews short because they weren't going anywhere. And there was no way I was ever going to hire that person. I mean, not really. I didn't want to waste people's times and all the things like that. And it's really not helpful. Let's see. And Morse 3 and 4 says, I've researched Brent's DBA interview things. It's not what you know. It's also principle-based management, bettering everyone through conflict. And that is so true. I would rather have somebody I can teach. You can't teach good personality. It's hard to teach somebody who's a bull in a china shop how to work together with people. But if you let your personality shine and you're patient and you just want to be a good colleague and team member, that comes so far from just knowledge. I do at a senior level want some knowledge, but that isn't everything. If I have somebody come in and they're arrogant and they're really flaunting their things, and I got to work with these people. I got to manage them after the fact, and that's tough. You can definitely teach tech, but attitude, that is a personal thing for sure. And I've seen it both sides. I've had people actually come in, and I didn't hire them on purpose, and they actually got a job at another place and did really well. And that's fine. Some of them were sole lone people, like they didn't have anybody to interact with except the boss. And so they didn't really have anything to prove. Those who go to work for other places that have colleagues, it's a little harder when you come in with an attitude. So you're absolutely right. You can teach tech. It's hard to teach attitude and aptitude, where you can learn. If you just can't learn and you show you can't learn in your interview, you got to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to up your skills on how to learn. I love people who come in and they learn. They constantly learn. I'm a lifelong learner. I have Brent's stuff at task every day. I could go watch it if I wanted to. I have it ready, and I have SQL skills stuff ready. I have my book list ready. I subscribe to O'Reilly and have unlimited books every month and stuff like that, so I can read and reference. So I surround myself with a lot of reference material on purpose, not because I read everything all the time, But if I need to dive deep into something in server tuning, I'm happy to go out and watch Brent's master server tuning class. And if I want to know really deep troubleshooting and perf tuning and stuff, I have access to SQL Skills performance and optimization classes. So I over time, I've been at this a long time, guys. Trust me. And over time, I've learned how to surround myself with reference material. So teaching tech is not so hard when you surround yourself in a career mode. I live in career mode every day and make sure that I have access to what I need to have access to keep me able to tap into problems, solutions to problems, or even just thought processes. I remember interviewing at Microsoft a long time ago, and but back then they were like half-day interviews. This was for a contractor position before I interviewed for full-time. And the full-time one was more like 6 hours or 8 hours of interview. So it's pretty brutal. But the most important thing they wanted to instill upon me is they did word problems, right? And some people don't like them. So there's plenty of blogs out there on people's experiences of interviewing. But what they did, and I didn't really do it much in my interviews. A word problem, a scenario problem. And I remember my first one, and I was nervous. Microsoft, I was interviewing at Microsoft, a place I always wanted to work forever and ever and ever. It was just my gig. And I get in there and they ask me this problem. And basically it was way cool. They basically said, hey, I want you to take me through this, and you can ask me any question you want. And no questions out of bounds. So I will give you the answer truthfully. You need to get out of this room. And I'm like, okay. So I asked about the room, and I asked about this, I asked about that. I thought I had exhausted all my possibilities of asking questions about everything about the room. And there were, no windows, blah, you could hear things, there were things outside, blah, blah, blah. It was great. And then I get to the end and I'm like, I don't know what else to ask. And so I said, so what do you think? And the guy looks at me and he says, so there's one question you didn't ask me. And I'm like, oh, great. One question I didn't ask you. And the question was, what is the floor made out of? I'm like, dang it. I didn't ask that. And it just so happened that room had a dirt floor. Oh man, I could have dug my way out and got out of the room, because there were no windows and there were no doors. Obviously, they put me in the room, fictitiously, because I would have to have some way to get in. But no doors, and the roof was solid. And but I never once asked about the door. I asked what the walls were made of. I asked what the roof was made of. I asked all these things, and the floor was the problem. So I'm like, great. That's just fantastic. So sometimes jobs interviews are fun, and sometimes they're grueling. And I remember going to the second one, and because I did 2 in one day, before I went back to the hotel and flew back home. And the second one was just as hard, but it was about movement. You had to move people across the bridge and blah, blah, blah. And I got it. I actually methodically thought my way through it, and they wanted me to talk through it because it wasn't about questions. It was about, I had rules of engagement, and I had to do certain things. I had to get people across the bridge with certain provisions, and I actually did it. And I remember looking at my hiring manager, and I said, okay, so look, this was back in 2000, right? So way back. And I hadn't got my degree yet, right? I was decently aged, but I had just chose not to get a degree. My family was poorer, and I didn't have money to go, and college wasn't really touted. And so I just worked. I just knew how to work hard because we learned that as kids. And so I went to work. And I remember looking my boss in the face and said, I'm so happy that I was able to do that, and he wanted to hire me. And I said, but I don't have a degree. And this was Microsoft back in the 2000 days, and a degree was really, really important. There were certain organizations that wouldn't hire you without a degree. And he looked at me back and said, I'm not interested in your degree. I am interested in how you thought through a problem methodically. I wanted your mind. I didn't want your college degree paper thing. And I remember walking out vividly. I can still see it in my head. I walked out onto the staircase of outside the building. And before I got to the stairs, the recruiter called me and said they want you to start. And I remember thinking, holy cow, this is a moment. I remember looking out over that part of campus. The building's still there. I was just up there in Microsoft campus, and that building is still there. And I drove by it. I looked at it. It was super cool. It's like, that is the building I started my career with Microsoft. And so I was a contractor for 6 months, and then I went to be a blue badge. I went to SQL Server support, and I stayed there for a year, and then spent time in support with the MVP program, and worked there seven great years. It was fantastic. It was such a great time. And then I moved back to Utah, and I left Microsoft, and I did my own thing after that, and got some good jobs as directors, learned how to hire. I was in the interview loop when I was at Microsoft, so that was fun. Learning how they interviewed and how to perform interviews and conduct them. And so it was really good. But yeah, that's been my experience with jobs. So long answer for a short question, but I appreciate the support of viewing. So I hope you have a great time. If you have anything you want, you're welcome to email me anytime, ben@benmiller.net, anytime, and ask these questions about interviews or things that you've encountered or whatever you'd like to talk about. But this is a great way if you want to use PollGrab2 or PollGrab2 or like I said, email or any of the social media. I'm DBADuck everywhere, the whole everywhere, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. So just connect up, and I'm happy to help throughout your time where you have to incur interviews and you want questions answered and stuff. Happy to do that. So at this point, we're at the time of my 30 minutes, so I don't want to go too long. And I appreciate all of your time, and I thank you, Morse 314. I think that's great to have somebody out there in PollGab and asking me questions. Hopefully, we'll get more questions, so we'll be able to just say, hey, we got more questions than one. But one question today was good enough, I think, to fulfill the half hour, and also to get some good information out to all those who are seeking jobs and looking what a job interview looks like and why you would do what and how you would do it. Just remember, be you. They want you. They don't want a trumped up person that thinks they're smart. Even if you're smart, they don't want you to tell them how smart you are and how awesome you are. They want you to be real, because you're going to have to interact with them, with other people in the company, and you really want to show up on your best foot. And that's just really, frankly, just being you, being hungry, being happy, and just wanting to be a team member. This showboating in interviews has, maybe today it's more tolerated. I didn't like it. It just made me uncomfortable and wondered what their motives were without asking them for their motives. So hopefully this will spread out. And like I said, now it's on YouTube, so it'll get a little more press than just on Twitch. I'll be starting to live stream to both just to make sure everybody gets the content. But thank you very much for your question, and thanks for being here. We'll be seeing you later. Bye-bye.